Hello, my name is James Hanna. I'm here to talk about the Mullens scale of early learning. It is a developmental test for children, all children, from birth to 68 months. It's really originally designed with neurodivergent learners in mind, although nothing specific. Um, the most recent version was published in 1995, also considered the most comprehensive because it covers a larger age group, and also for the normative groups, they covered a lot larger group of 1,800 students, all from different backgrounds of ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. It happened to be a good barometer for judging autism, which I'll talk a little more about later, and also use very efficiently for entry and exit data after interventions to can see where, well, how efficient or how effective, rather, your interventions are. Um, the groups they test in this are for visual receptions or visual problem solving, gross motor, fine motor, receptive language, and expressive language are the five domains that they test. Um, so, who can administer the test are any professional that has any training in developmental milestones, preferably people like speech language pathologists, special ed teachers, any really kind of occupational therapist, physical therapist, any kind of professional like that, or school psychologist will be just fine with administering this test. Um, and although the norms weren't established with autism spectrum in mind, it inadvertently became a worthy test of measuring true IQ in autistic children, which I'll talk about in a minute. Um, so how do you score the basal and ceiling with this? It's a lot like other ones where you find the chronological age of the child and you start there. You start asking questions to establish what they call basal, where they have to have three consecutive questions answered from starting for their age group is. If they have less than that, then you have to go backwards until they get three consecutive right, and score all the other questions previous with that as a part of the score, and the rest you go until what you call the ceiling, when they get three consecutive answers wrong. So each question on there, well, each thing is a question where you either answer basically one or zero, one if they can perform this little task that they ask, um, and zero if they can. And all this stuff comes from a little kit, well, not a little kit, a big kit, a very expensive kit that even on Pearson is the cheapest almost I found it for about $1,500. And even amongst that, you still have to have some of your own equipment for it. Um, then you take all the composite scores from all the five domains the covered. Then you have what they call a T score. The mean score is about 50 with the standard deviation of 10. But then you use that to come up with a early learning composite score, or basically the total score, which you're going to use, where the mean is 100 with standard deviations of 15. And what the standard deviations are basically is um, 100 is the mean, so it's the average score, where basically anything above 15, over 100, or below 15 within that range is going to be what they call normal, or basically on target development. And anything below that are going to start to be bands like below average, poor, things like that for every 15. And then why is this a good test for ASD children? It kind of accidentally became that from one domain actually for this, for the visual learning, the visual discrimination that covers visual memory, visual organizing, visual sequencing, spatial awareness. It's good for them because a lot of, well, autistic learners don't really process language too well, or just kind of just tune out and don't really pay much attention. The visual kind of gave him a little hands-on problem solving where you could more judge children with communication problems such as autism to better judge really where they are instead of just asking them questions which they either just won't understand or just will end up being frustrated and not participate with. So this kind of ended up being, even though it wasn't intended for it, ended up being a very good measure for autism and other things too that they discovered. Although it is not a time test, you still can judge or not judge, but see correlations between things like behavior interferences and things like that, crying, things like that, and kind of an unwillingness to do things is also kind of correlating with other well students with autism. So that's another way you can kind of use that to judge. Well, thank you for listening and have a pleasant evening.